The Healer family headed out for an evening stroll in the wooded hills near Brisbane, a spot perfect for spotting stars and playing pretend explorers. Bluey and Bingo skipped ahead with flashlights, drawing maps in the dirt, while Bandit carried a backpack of snacks and Chili pointed out constellations peeking through the branches. "Let's play night detectives," Bluey declared, her tail wagging as the sky darkened to deep blue. They wandered off the path, the crunch of leaves underfoot mixing with their excited chatter. But as full night fell, the woods grew unnaturally still. No crickets chirped, the air hummed with a faint rhythmic hooting that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Bingo's flashlight flickered, casting jittery beams on twisting trunks. "I think I saw eyes up there," she whispered, pointing to the canopy. Chili squeezed her paw reassuringly, but a chill wind rustled the leaves, carrying an owl's shadow silent, sweeping low without a sound. It was the owl, a colossal bird with feathers blending into the night, eyes like twin moons burning white hot. Its wings spanned wide, silent as death, talons curved for silent grabs. This wasn't any forest creature. The owl from those endless nights stalked the unwary, watching from perches before diving to claim the lost, dragging them into the dark where light failed. In the game, it circled overhead, disorienting prey with hypnotic stares until they wandered into traps. Here, its gaze locked on, freezing the air, shadows lengthening unnaturally. Bluey looked up, a shiver running down her spine. She tried to call out, but her voice caught the owl's eyes pulled at her, blurring the edges of sight, turning trees into looming figures. Bandit swung his flashlight beam skyward. "Stay close," he barked. But the owl swooped, wings brushing the treetops without a whisper, knocking the light from his grip. It shattered on the ground, plunging them into partial dark. Branches clawed at their fur as panic set in, paths twisting like the owl's flight patterns. Chili scooped up Bingo and dashed toward a clearing, but the hooting echoed louder, multiplying as if a flock watched. The owl perched on a high limb, head swiveling silently, its stare making Bingo's vision swim with illusions, ghostly shapes of forgotten friends waving from the mist. "Over here!" Bluey urged silently, tugging Bandit's sleeve. She spotted a fallen log and led them behind it, hearts pounding. The owl dove again, talons scraping bark inches away, feathers shedding like dark snow that stuck and obscured. Bandit fumbled for his phone's light, the weak glow pushing back the shadows just enough. The owl recoiled with a piercing screech, retreating to the heights, but not before its eyes swept over them one last time, etching warnings into their minds. They stumbled out to the car, the woods behind silent once more. The park looked ordinary under streetlights, but Bandit's flashlight was cracked, its beam forever dimmed. From then on they stuck to daytime outings, but on clear nights the hooting returned, watching from the rooftops, waiting for the next game under the stars. The woods never forgot those who strayed too far. There's a Bluey episode almost no one remembers. Or maybe they choose not to. It's called The Girl Behind the Glass. Some say it aired once late at night and then disappeared forever. No records. Only rumors and those who still remember what they saw. It started like any normal day. Bluey and Bingo were playing inside their house. The weather was cloudy. Gray light filled the rooms. Everything looked a little washed out. Bingo suggested a new game. "Let's play mirror match." She pointed to the large window facing the backyard. "You copy me and I copy you." They both giggled and pressed their noses against the glass. At first it was innocent fun. They raised their arms, twirled around, made silly faces. The reflections followed just as they should, but then something shifted. Bluey raised her right arm, Bingo raised her left like a mirror would. But the Bingo in the window didn't move. It just stood still, frozen. Bluey laughed nervously, thinking it was part of the game. She waved again. The Bingo in the glass tilted its head, not copying, just different. The real Bingo tugged at Bluey's paw. "I'm tired, let's play something else." She skipped away from the window. Bluey stayed, staring at the frozen reflection. Something about the eyes. They were too wide. The smile stretched just a little too much. That night things got worse. Bluey woke to tapping, soft rhythmic taps against the glass. She sat up in bed. The backyard window was across the room, barely visible in the moonlight. But she saw her, Bingo, standing outside, pressing her face against the glass. Only it wasn't Bingo. The real Bingo was asleep, tucked safely in bed. Bluey whispered, afraid to make a sound. The figure outside smiled. It wasn't a kind smile, it was stretched. Wrong. Slowly, it lifted its hand and tapped once more against the glass. In the morning, Bluey told her parents. They smiled nervously and said she must have had a bad dream. They pulled the curtains tighter, locked the windows. But every night Bluey heard it, the tapping. And every night if she dared to look, there she was. The other Bingo, moving on her own, scraping her hands down the glass, mouthing silent words Bluey couldn't understand. Sometimes she would press her palm flat against the window. Sometimes she would just stand and tilt her head, watching. The last night Bluey woke not to tapping but to breathing, slow, wet, heavy. The window was open, curtains fluttered against the cold air. Bluey didn't want to look, but something inside her did. She turned her head ever so slowly. And there, sitting at the end of her bed, was Bingo, or what looked like Bingo. The real Bingo slept soundly, back turned to the horror. The thing at the end of the bed smiled, and in the softest, sweetest voice it whispered, "Your turn to follow me now." The screen faded to black. No ending scene, no music, no laughter. Just the long, soft sound of something dragging across glass. Then, silence. There's a lost Bluey episode only spoken about in hushed tones. They call it The Night Bus. It was never officially released. Only fragments of memory and a few screenshots remain. The episode began with Bluey and Bingo waiting with Bandit at a bus stop. It was already late. The sky was dark and the streetlights flickered. They were supposed to catch the last bus home. The air felt heavy, thick, as if the world was holding its breath. The bus pulled up. It looked normal, at first. Bluey and Bingo climbed aboard, waving at the driver. But he didn't wave back. He didn't even move. His face was hidden under the brim of his cap. Bandit sat with them for a few minutes, then smiled and said, "I'll see you two at home." He stepped off the bus. The doors hissed closed, and the bus pulled away. Bluey and Bingo looked out the window, but the streets didn't look right. Buildings were twisted, street signs blurred. People on the sidewalks didn't move, they just stood, staring. The further the bus went, the darker it became. Inside the bus, the other passengers were silent, staring forward, their faces wrong, smudged, like old paintings left in the rain. Bluey squeezed Bingo's paw. "I want to go home," she whispered. The bus didn't stop. It just kept driving. Faster now. The lights outside grew dimmer and the shadows inside the bus grew longer, stretching, reaching. One figure stood up, slowly. Its arms were too long, its face an empty gaping hole. It began walking toward them, step by step. Bingo cried. Bluey shouted, "Stop the bus!" No one moved. Not the driver, not the passengers. The thing came closer, its hollow face just inches away. And then, the bus jolted to a stop. Bluey grabbed Bingo's paw and ran. They pushed past the silent passengers, fell out into the street. The town was wrong, silent. The buildings loomed at odd angles. The sky was a deep, choking black. No stars, no moon. Only the faint sound of footsteps. Many footsteps, approaching from all sides. They ran, down alleys, around corners. But the city twisted endlessly. No way out. The episode ended with Bluey and Bingo standing under a broken streetlight. Alone, shivering, listening to the footsteps growing louder, closer. The screen slowly faded to black. No credits, no music. Only the sound of a bus engine idling in the darkness. The episode begins like any other sunny morning at the Healer house, with Bluey and Bingo joyfully playing in the living room. Suddenly they stumble upon a large antique mirror that seemingly was never there before. Bandit and Chili are in the kitchen, preoccupied with their own tasks, paying no attention to the children. And this is where things start to go wrong. Bluey and Bingo decide to play making faces in front of this strange mirror. They make silly faces and giggle, but it quickly becomes obvious that their reflections are not just copies. They are different. The reflections in the mirror smile wider than Bluey and Bingo. Their eyes begin to look unnaturally large and bright, almost like someone lurking in the shadows waiting for their moment. You know how a clown's eyes look? Exactly like that. The children at first don't notice anything suspicious, thinking it's part of the game. They try to mimic their reflections, but the reflections start to show something truly chilling. Bandit and Chili appear in the mirror, but their faces are distorted with fear, and their smiles are painted on, empty. They look miserable, almost like lifeless mannequins. Then, the parents' figures in the reflections suddenly vanish, leaving only the empty, sinisterly smiling reflections of the children. Bluey, sensing that something is deeply wrong, tries to touch her reflection. But instead of touching, her reflection sharply pushes her hand away. And you wouldn't believe it, a faint red streak resembling blood appears on the mirror. It was impossible and unnatural. Bluey and Bingo step away from the mirror, but the nightmare is just beginning. Their own faces slowly, almost imperceptibly begin to distort, mirroring the sinister smiles of their reflections. Their voices, when they try to speak, become deeper, raspier, completely unlike the sweet puppies they are. And then the most unsettling part happens. The background of the room slowly, inexorably begins to transform into a dark, damp sewer. The sounds from the cartoon gradually morph into dripping water, muffled footsteps, and a quiet, sinister giggle that seems to come from everywhere, enveloping the entire space. The final shot, the camera slowly, agonizingly zooms in on the mirror, and in it, there is no longer a reflection of the room. There is a dark, bottomless well, and for a moment, just a second, from that abyss emerges a single, huge, predatory yellow eye. Then the episode abruptly cuts off, the screen filled with a deep, dead black. The room with the clock. The episode begins at the end of the school day. Bluey, Bingo, Coco, Mackenzie, and Snickers are playing in the schoolyard. The air feels strangely quiet, as if all sounds are muffled. No teachers are in sight. Mackenzie suggests a game of hide and seek. The others eagerly agree. He starts counting out loud, monotone, slow. Bluey runs off alone. Inside the school building, she notices an unfamiliar wooden door down a side hallway, similar to other classroom doors but with a dull brass handle. It wasn't there before. The door is open. Bluey enters. The room is empty. Wooden floor, bare walls. In the center stands an old pendulum clock, black, carved from dark wood. The hands move backward. On the walls hang old photographs. In one, Bingo sits on a swing, her face slightly blurred. In another, Chili stands in the kitchen, eyes closed. In the third, Bluey stands at a window, but behind her there's only darkness, as if the window looks into nothing. From the corner, a soft, even ticking sound. The pendulum swings. Bluey sits down on the floor. She hears footsteps beyond the door, but they don't get closer. They only pace back and forth like someone searching but not daring to come in. She steps out. The schoolyard is empty. Coco stands near a tree, staring off. Snickers sits, unmoving. Mackenzie is on a bench. He's watching her. Slowly, he turns his head. He says nothing. Bluey walks up to him. He silently points over her shoulder. She turns. It's the same school door she just came through. In the glass, her reflection. But it doesn't mimic her movements. Bluey heads home. The sky darkens quickly. Chili greets her as if nothing happened. Bandit washes dishes. Bingo is drawing. On her paper, a clock. No numbers. Everyone speaks normal phrases, but their tone is wrong, rehearsed, uncertain. As if they're unsure what they're supposed to say. Bluey goes to bed. She looks at her bedside table. The same clock sits there. She doesn't remember bringing it home. In the middle of the night, she wakes up. From the hallway. Tick, tick, tick. She walks down the corridor. The floor beneath her feet sounds dull, heavy. The lights don't turn on. At the end of the hallway, another door. It opens by itself. Inside, the same room. But now the clock is taller, almost as big as Bluey. There are more photographs. In one, the whole family is at the table, but all looking in different directions. The windows behind them are black. In another, Mackenzie stands by the school wall. His face is gone. Only a shape remains. Final shot, the clock. Its hands still move backward. The pendulum hums louder than before. Everything holds still. Black screen. No credits. No music.